Hello, I'm Dr. Gloria Horsley.
And I'm her daughter, Dr. Heidi Horsley.
Heidi and I want to welcome you to Open to Hope Conversations, the podcast.
We believe that the greatest gift you can give yourself after a loss is hope, using this moment to connect with others who have not only survived but thrived.
So let's get started. Welcome to the Open to Hope show. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Horsley, with my daughter and co-host,
Dr. Heidi Horsley.
Well, Heidi, as many people may know, our number one visit at Open to Hope is adults losing parents. And so we've got an expert on grief and loss here who's been in the therapy business for a long time. And we're going to talk to her about her relationship with her mom and how it impacted her years ago, because we know there are a lot of you that have difficult relationships with family members. And we want to explore this a little bit today. So, Heidi, would you like to introduce our guest?
Sure, I'd love to. And I've known our guest a very long time. And she's a wonderful person. Her name is Nancy Gershman. She is a licensed clinical social worker and an integrative psychotherapist with Baba Therapy Group. Her mother died when she was only 57, and Nancy at the time was in her 20s. She is the developer of Prescriptive Memory Making. Her publications include Prescriptive Memories of Grief and Loss, The Art of Dreamscaping, and case studies in Robert Niemeyer's Techniques of Grief Therapy book. Since 2013, Nancy has co-hosted Death Cafe in New York City. Welcome to our podcast, Nancy.
Hi, I'm excited to
Hello.
be back. Thank you.
So great to see you. It's been a while and wonderful
Yes,
to have you
indeed.
on. Well, as I said, we have a lot of people who have come on and listened to the podcast and come on our website who've lost a parent. And
Yeah,
these are complicated relationships. I know, and we talked to you a little bit about yours with your mom, and I thought that could help us give us some
yeah,
enlightenment to folks today. Could you tell us about that a bit?
I'd be happy to. I grew up with a mother who had mental health issues ever since she was a refugee from Nazi occupied Europe, and she came as a teenager, and it sort of snowballed into obsessive compulsive um, syndrome. And what happened is that she became obsessed with cleanliness. So that meant that whenever we were at home, she would control the environment, and we wouldn't be able to enter a room or touch a closet without her permission. And it obviously, life was pretty unbearable. So the idea would be to always stay away from the home, to do homework in my father's office, for example, to stay away from the home until I had to go to sleep. So when I was a young married mother, what happened was I would also try to keep her at arm's length, because as soon as she would come into our home, she would begin to reorganize, always staying at a distance. The death was sudden because she died of a pulmonary embolism. She basically, her last words were, "You can have my fur coat." She was about to have a hernia operation, and I said, fabulous. We always would joke with one another, but my father made the call that we had lost Evelyn, my mother. I was surprised at how much intense emotion poured out of me, and how I had to repeat the narrative that my mother had just died to every person I met. It was absolutely surprising for me, because I hardly ever talked about my mother to anyone. And here, every time I had to go to the grocery store, the bank, or whatever, I wanted people to see I was crying, to ask me about my mother's death. It was really a surprise.
I think you said part of the surprise was that there was going to be no future where you could repair the relationship.
Yes, I mean, that's sort of the cognitive part of it. I didn't realize that at the time. I felt that my father was experiencing, deep pain, and for myself, it wasn't really clear until many years later, actually, that's what I was crying for. At the time, it was. just, getting ready for the memorial service and putting an album together, a commemorative album, and trying to get myself together.
I often see this in sibling loss relationships
Mhm.
because losses are complicated and there's oftentimes ambivalence, and they
Yes.
didn't know their sibling was going to die. And people are surprised that people that have ambivalent relationships often are in a great deal of pain. And I think that surprises people because they're like, well, if you weren't really close, why is it upsetting you this much?
Yeah, I felt like I was always bracing myself when I was with her, or when I was on the phone and we would be sort of planning when our family should meet because I had a new child. So that feeling of hypervigilance, I guess, was always there. And then when she died, and I was free of this sort of wicked witch, in my mind, a dam broke, of sorts.
Mm.
Wow.
Yeah.
And flash forward, because you said you didn't know until years. What did you learn and discover about it years later?
Um, I had tremendous compassion for my mother. I felt badly that there wasn't really a course of therapy that worked for her. Basically, they gave her a Valium and told her to take a nap in the afternoon. But she would always revert back to her, that compulsive self. Every day. Every day was Groundhog Day for her, to clean the closets, take everything out, put everything back. Um, yeah, and so many years later, I thought about that poor soul, basically, having to live her life like that. There were moments, though, of being in touch with my mother where we were soulmates, after her loss, where I appreciated her tremendous sense of fashion, how she could just take this garment, this garment, and this garment, and make herself look like $1 million. And she learned how to do that in boarding school when her own mother sent her away. So she had a complicated relationship with her mother. My mother was sent out of the picture by her mother.
So you found forgiveness and compassion, it sounds like.
Yes, yes. No, forgiveness was immediate with the compassion about the mental health issues. Yes, and that my father didn't know better also what to do. I used to really be angry at my father as well for not sort of institutionalizing her, having her head of the household.
Are you feeling at peace with her now?
Yeah,
Now you have gotten into Death Cafe. Tell
yeah.
us about that.
Yeah, actually, when I first came back to New York from Chicago, there was a friend of mine, that I'd met, and she was running the Death Cafe in Manhattan, and then eventually I took over for her. But I loved it because it was a dinner party, essentially. I felt that having it over a communal dinner in a Moroccan restaurant was the bomb, and you would have medical staff that had seen ghosts. You would have someone who lost their sibling 40 years ago, their twin, and all these conversations would flow around the table, and it was fantastic.
And
Yeah.
now you're getting into the book. Talk about your book.
Yes, I have been compiling what does the afterlife look like? Um,
Mhm.
what do people wear there? Do they go to school? If they don't need their bodies, is there still a way to sit and learn somewhere? And I also, I think it all started when I heard that people who commit suicide go to a kind of sanatorium filled with puppies and kittens. And when I heard that, I thought, oh my God, this is a fantastic, fantastic world. I'm going to have to do some world building here and flesh it out. Um, but I felt that it would be a particularly good book for the bereaved who have lost someone in horrible ways or too early. And it would be a gift that you could give a family like that, or something that they could buy for themselves.
And
Uh,
Nancy, where are you getting the stories? Are you getting them from people that have had near-death experiences, or
yeah, I have to say, I'm right behind this is a bookshelf filled with books by psychics, mediums,
Mhm.
intuitives, as they're called, who also have a sense of what it's like. But what I haven't done yet, which I want to start doing, is to actually have a conversation with one of these types of psychic mediums, intuitives, and say, and ask specific questions like what I've just asked, what does it look like? At age 10, my grandmother, for some reason, wouldn't let me watch television, this television program on, as I would later learn out, it was about the Holocaust. And that's when I learned that her sister and sister's husband and son had been at Bergen-Belsen, and only the son
Wow.
survived, who I got to know. But yes, and that actually just made me want to learn more about death. And then I also had this thing about cemeteries. I love death. I love those poems that sit on the tombstones.
Hmm.
So my husband puts up with that. Now I have to visit. I have to visit a cemetery wherever we go in the world and look.
And
Yeah.
you've also done these dreamscapes, which are pretty fascinating. We've known you for those.
Yes.
I noticed that you have a lot of those on your website, and people can
Yes.
do dream
Yes.
kind of work.
Yes. I've made a gallery on my website, artforyoursake.com. And I find that very often in a complicated relationship, it's very therapeutic to imagine what would the corrective memory be if we had to make a prescriptive memory. What would that look like if you could do anything and be anywhere? If you worried about uh, some relationship that could not happen. Where do you think it would be fun to reposition, like for example, myself and my mother in a parallel world, in a parallel universe? What would we be doing? Would we be fixing each other's hair, makeup, you
Mhm.
know,
And
having a
so you can kind of do that with photographs and cutouts and
now you can do it with generative AI. You can also generate videos as well.
I love
It's
the
amazing.
idea of changing the narrative,
Yeah, yeah,
through visuals and saying, hey, maybe this is what our relationship looked like, but this is what I wish it had looked like.
yeah. And
right.
what's key there, I'll just squeeze that in, is that you have to collect the felt sense memories that were positive. So not just making the story la-di-da, but rather say, what when I had the happiest moment, what was it? Was it with my eyes, with smell, with touch? And those are the building blocks for this new memory in the dreamscape. So
I
that's what
like
makes it
that,
stick.
Nancy, because
Yeah.
sometimes we remember the bad times more because they're loud and
Yeah.
they're harsh and they're judgmental, and the loving times and good times, they're often quiet. And
Yes.
so we might not remember them. So I love that
Yeah.
you're making an effort to say, hey, it wasn't all bad. There were good memories. Let's
Yeah.
access those.
I think that's so important to
Mhm.
as we go. If you don't have forgiveness, it's hard to carry. These memories become heavy, and let's lighten
Yeah.
them
Hmm.
up, which is what Nancy
Yeah.
does. Go visit her website because she has some very cool stuff there. Now you're in private practice too, right?
I'm in a group practice.
Okay.
Yes.
And where is that?
It's in Manhattan, and it's run by someone who I think is a genius. She has training in Gestalt, but she also has some Buddhist approaches to things, and that's why it's called Bhava therapy, which means in the process of becoming. And she believes in working with parts, the parts of us, child parts and other parts. And also body-based approaches. So I'm very, very happy.
Good. It sounds wonderful.
Yeah,
Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. It's so awesome to see you, and
pleasure.
you're looking wonderful.
Really, pleasure is mine.
Always good to see you, Nancy, and thank you so much for everything you've done over the years to bring people hope.
Thank you so much. That's very
And
kind.
thanks everybody for joining us on this show today. And Heidi and I always want to remind you that if you've lost hope, please lean on ours until you find your own, and God bless.
I'm Dr. Heidi Horsley. You have been listening to Open to Hope, the podcast. You can follow Open to Hope on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. To learn more, visit us at opentohope.com and go to Apple Podcasts to subscribe.
I'm Dr. Gloria Horsley. Join us again next week for another Open to Hope conversation, where we invite you to lean on our hope until you find your own.